And I'm joined on stage by two people who are at the heart of that world, investing in circular economy on both sides of the Atlantic. Jamie from Circularity Capital and Georgia from Closed Loop Partners. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've just heard from Winnow, and I think I'm right in saying that that was the first investment that Circularity Capital made.
That's correct.
And so can you talk a bit about your personal story from moving from the previous CEO of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation to setting up Circularity Capital?
Yeah, so I think when you're at the foundation, you're constantly thinking how to scale, and you're thinking what interactions you could make to really scale up. And back in 2009, we were captivated by the concept of the circular economy. We'd read lots of literature about it, but there was nothing out there about how it actually creates financial value. So we ended up working together with McKinsey and producing a report called Towards the Circular Economy to demonstrate how much value the circular economy could create. And I believe that played a role in corporates getting more interested in the circular economy as it was launched at the World Economic Forum in 2011. I think the next logical step in my mind was investors are a bit different, and we have to think like an institutional investor. So big sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, insurance companies, funder funds who own the majority of the capital in the world. And the way that those actors react is based on returns, right? So they invest more money if they see good returns. So to me, it became critical to demonstrate how the circular economy can drive premium financial returns alongside measurable positive non-financial impact. And that was the genesis behind setting up a fund that had the right skill set to select the best of these types of companies and then bring them the right support to help them to grow and achieve their full potential.
And Georgia, Closed Loop were another early mover in this space, focusing on specific needs of circular economy companies and innovation. So what does that mean for the types of financial solutions that you offer?
Thanks, Emily. I think what we've really seen is different kinds of companies require really different funding needs, and that's based on the growth stage of the company and the type of the company. So for example, a company that provides composting infrastructure versus a company that provides digital technological solutions to trace supply chains will have very different needs. And so Closed Loop Partners was really set up to meet the diverse funding needs and meet companies exactly where they are. So we have an innovation center, and we then span venture capital, growth equity, project-based finance, and private equity. So that kind of goes through from the really early stage to the later stage where we're actually acquiring companies to build circular supply chains. So ultimately, our goal is to build the circular economy, and so our platform is set up to create that flexibility to meet the diverse needs.
So looking around the room today, I think there are far more innovators than we would have seen even 5 years ago. So Jamie, I'm wondering, what are the things that have really created this market and created a fertile ground for circular economy investors?
Yeah, I think there's 4 things. I think the first one is just the recognition that in the right context, these circular businesses can create more value. So companies can develop deeper margins, stickier customer relationships. They become more valuable and grow faster. Secondly, I think we're increasingly seeing a sustainability imperative. So this is a generation of consumers demanding to know more about the provenance of products, and it's also more regulatory legislative pressure. Thirdly, technology is definitely enabling this transition. So knowing more about the status, location, demand, condition of products allows us to develop more business models. And finally, there's a really attractive exit environment. So we're seeing an increasing number of investors looking for financial return alongside some societal problem solved. So call it ESG, in a more purist form, impact investing, and they're combining to really accelerate this transition.
So those are some of the things that can help, but we've heard for some of the speakers today that there are barriers and not every great circular economy idea gets invested in. So what is already happening or could already happen or could happen to break those barriers and really drive momentum in this space?
Yeah, so I guess at our level, that's all about building up a really good picture of what best in class looks like for these kind of businesses. So looking at lots of the same types of companies establishing what the key attributes are and also what the common challenges are, and how as an investor we can bring the right toolkit to support the management teams to unlock their full potential. I think at a higher level there's a number of things, and many of them have been spoken about today, but I think collaboration. I also think anything that internalizes the external costs, so for example reducing VAT on remanufacturing through to putting a cost on carbon, and also organizations like this, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is bringing people together. We've got Zero Waste Scotland, we've got Re-London, we've got people from all over the world who are actually bringing people together to hear more about the amazing solutions out there.
And Georgia, I want to stick on this driving momentum theme. Are you seeing your work start to filter through to the sphere of mainstream capital? Are larger investors starting to invest in the companies that you might have invested in?
Yes, definitely, which is really positive to see. I think generally during the pandemic, there was a concern that sustainability or circularity might be put on the back burner, but really we've seen the opposite is true, and there's been a massive acceleration of investment activity across the board. And maybe to make it a bit more tangible, I think, one example is a company that we invested in early on. We gave them a loan, which was a company called Temperpack. They create a sustainable alternative to styrofoam, and they very recently closed on a new equity round of 140 million, and that was led by Goldman Sachs. And so it's these kind of indicators that more traditional mainstream capital is seeing the value of circular solutions to mitigate climate risks, to meet ESG goals, and then fundamentally to kind of build more resilient supply chains. So it's really encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. And so what's your message to the innovators online and in the room? What should they focus on to really have the best chance of their circular innovation being investable?
Great question. I think it's a couple of things. I think number one is to be really effective in communicating their impact story. I think as more and more innovators enter the space, having verifiable impact data to support the work that they do is going to be really important to differentiate themselves and be authentic. I think the second is always we're looking for sort of the market appetite indicators, and so whether that's a letter of intent from a client, pilots, or contracts that are in place, that helps show a market signal in the right direction. And then lastly is the team. Always, a phenomenal team is critical and mission-driven and smart.